When we think of a computer, we imagine a laptop or a smartphone or even a powerful desktop machine. But the early concept of computer wasn't digital at all. In the 19th century, Charles Babbage designed two groundbreaking mechanical machines, the difference engine and the analytical engine. These were not the electronic devices but the mechanical computers powered by gears and levers, capable of performing complex calculations. But what if I told you that the idea of such a machine existed nearly 2000 years earlier? Let me tell you a fascinating story. In 1901, a group of Greek sponge divers were searching for sponges in the Mediterranean Sea when a storm forced them to take shelter near a small island of Antikythera. While driving in the waters nearby, they stumbled upon something extraordinary: the wreck of a massive Roman cargo ship that had sunk in the 1st century BC. Among the statues, pottery, and other artifacts, what they recovered was a strange, greenish lump of corroded bronze. It looked like nothing more than rock, so no one paid much attention to it. For 2 years, it just sat unnoticed in the basement of National Archaeological Museum in Athens. Then, one day, archaeologist Valerio Stais examined the object more closely and noticed something remarkable: a gear wheel embedded in the corroded moss. This wasn't just a chunk of metal or a piece of decoration anymore, it was part of a machine. And that single discovery would forever change our understanding of the ancient technology. Until this discovery, the ancient Greeks were mainly celebrated for their philosophy, art, and literature, not for advanced mechanical engineering. But this artifact revealed a very different story. It proved that the ancient Greek technology was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. There was just one problem. The object was heavily corroded and fused into a solid mass of calcified metal. Any attempt to open it risked destroying it completely. So, for decades, researchers left it just untouched. Meanwhile, archaeologists continued to explore the shipwreck site. Over the next century, several expeditions were carried out. Early efforts were limited, but just because of the primitive diving equipments. But as diving technology improved, more of the wreck and its treasures were recovered. Yet the mysterious mechanism remained sealed and unreadable. Many attempts were made to study it, but no one could see inside without risking permanent damage. That finally changed in early 2000s. With the advancements in the imaging technology and other scans, researchers used high-resolution X-ray CT scanning and advanced surface imaging to see inside the corroded fragments without opening or damaging them. What they discovered inside would astonish the whole world. What they found inside was a true masterpiece of engineering. That too from the 1st century BC. Researchers had expected something unusual, but not this advanced. The mechanism turned out to be far more complex than anyone imagined. It wasn't just a tool or a simple device. It was a sophisticated machine, comparable in concept to the mechanical clocks that would appear over in the Europe in the, let's say, 1,000 years later, or even to the analog computers developed in the 18th and 19th centuries. Through careful studies and scientific dating methods, including the radiocarbon analysis and historical cross-referencing, researchers determined that the ship likely sank in the 1st century BC. The mechanism itself, however, was even older, built sometime between 205 BC to 50 BC. In other words, this incredible machine was created over 2000 years ago. The Antikythera Mechanism was made of bronze, and the outer plate of the device was covered with Greek inscriptions. Enough of these inscriptions survived to clearly reveal the purpose of the machine. It was designed for astronomical and calendar-based calculations. Although many parts of the device were lost or too damaged to interpret, ongoing expeditions to the wreck site recovered numerous fragments over time. Today, 82 known fragments have been identified, with 7 of them containing most of the surviving gears and inscriptions that reveal how the mechanism actually worked. Because the device was incomplete, researchers around the world have attempted to reconstruct it. Several replicas and digital reconstructions have been created in order to understand its function and mechanical complexity. The device was operated by turning a small hand crank connected to a crown gear. This gear drove the main wheel, and every full rotation of the wheel represented one complete solar year. Inside the mechanism were at least 30 precise crafted bronze gears, some with teeth only a millimeter wide. The mechanism had two main phases. On the front were two large dials. The outer dial marked the 365-day calendar year, while the inner dial displayed the 12 zodiac signs. Two pointers moved across these scales. One tracked the position of the sun through the year, and the other showed the moon's position and the moon's current phase. When the sun and moon pointers were opposite each other, the dial indicated a full moon. When they aligned, it marked a new moon. Turning the crank advanced the calendar and moved the celestial calendars forward in time. On the back, the device had two major spiral dials. One was used to predict the astronomical cycles and eclipses, while the other functioned as a long-term calendar. Small sub-dials tracked additional cycles, including the 4-year cycle of ancient athletic games, such as the Olympic Games. One of the major dials followed the Metonic cycle, a period of 235 lunar months, or about, let's say, 19 solar years. Another followed the Callippic cycle, a refinement of the Metonic cycle spanning 76 years. Altogether, the mechanism was an astonishingly sophisticated astronomical calculator, a machine capable of tracking time, celestial motions, complex astronomical cycles, using nothing more than just gears and mechanical precision. The ancient Greeks achieved this using precisely engineered gears, which is why this device is considered as an analog computer. A modern computer takes input, processes data, and produces an output. It performs calculations electronically using binary code. An analog computer, however, does the same thing mechanically. Instead of circuits and code, it uses physical components like gears, levers, and wheels to represent and process information. For example, in a digital computer, calculating something like 2 times 4 happens electronically through binary operations. In an analog system, that same calculation can be represented through gear ratios. A larger gear and a smaller gear can be arranged so that one rotation of the larger gear produces multiple rotations of the smaller one, mechanically encoding multiplication through motion. The Antikythera Mechanism used this same principle, but on an extraordinary scale. Its network of gears was calibrated with remarkable precision. By simply turning a crank, the machine could display the position of sun and the moon and its zodiac and track lunar phases, even predict solar and lunar eclipses. It could also model the movements of, the 5 planets of the time: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. All of this was achieved just by turning a single control effectively and letting the gears compute the rest. And this was built more than 2,000 years ago. After the Roman conquest of the Greek world, this level of mechanical sophistication seems to have vanished. For more than 1,000 years, nothing of comparable complexity appeared again in Europe. It wasn't until the development of astronomical clocks in the 14th century that machines with similar mechanical precision re-emerged. Remarkably, the same fundamental principles seen in the Antikythera Mechanism, interlocking gears, precise ratios, and mechanical calculation, are still used in the modern mechanical clocks today. This missing link in the history of the technology reveals that ancient Greek engineering was far more advanced than the historians once believed, and that complex mechanical computation existed long before the modern era. In history, we often imagine technological progress as a steady climb. Simple tools evolve into more advanced ones over time. But the Antikythera Mechanism breaks that pattern. It represents an astonishing leap in complexity, followed by a sudden disappearance. After the ship carrying the mechanism sank, the knowledge required to build such intricate, geared machines seems to have vanished. For more than 1,400 years, the world saw nothing like it. It's as if an entire branch of advanced engineering was just lost. Imagine if humanity lost the ability to build the internet today, and 2,000 years from now, someone unearthed a smartphone. They would struggle to believe that we had once built something so advanced. This is exactly how the Antikythera Mechanism appears to us today. The Antikythera Mechanism forces us to rethink history. It proves that the ancient world was capable of precision engineering and complex computation far beyond what was once believed. And it also reminds us that knowledge doesn't always move forward in a straight line. It can be discovered, lost, and rediscovered again.